Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Cyber Science Lab podcast series. Here we explore different aspects of autonomous cybersecurity through insightful discussions that we have with leading professionals. I'm Dr. Tooska Dargahi, Senior Lecturer in Cybersecurity at Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK, and your host for today's episode. Before I start my conversation with my dear guest today, I would like to again introduce our upcoming workshop, which is called Autonomous Cyber 2024, which will be co-located with the 31st ACM Conference on Computer and Communication Security, ACM CCS 2024, which will be held on the October 18th in Salt Lake City in the US. In this workshop, we will be discussing different aspects of autonomous cybersecurity, and the authors of the accepted papers will be presenting their papers. Of course, if you have checked the website, you will see that the submission deadline has passed already, but you can register to attend the workshop. Today's guest for this episode is Professor Ryan Coe. He is the chair and director of the UQ Cyber Research Centre at the University of Queensland in Australia. Thank you, Ryan, for accepting our invitation, and welcome to this podcast. Although we have this big time difference, thank you so much for accommodating us today.
Thank you, Tooska. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Could you please tell us a little bit about UQ Cyber Research Centre at the University of Queensland and about your research in autonomous cyber?
Yeah, thank you. So UQ Cyber Research Centre is based at the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia. It has a bit of, it's kind of like a second phase of the cybersecurity work at the University of Queensland, because in 1992, the Australian Computer Emergency Response Team, which was the second CERT in the world after Carnegie Mellon's one, was formed at the University of Queensland, or CERT. So in 2019, I was actually hired to start a research center which integrates the academic and also the industry aspects with CERT and its 600 corporate members to join together to form an interdisciplinary research center. Now, this center actually involves about 60-something academics and their teams. We have close to 100 PhD students working on different aspects of cybersecurity, from quantum computing all the way to political science and policy making, to criminology, business management, and all the way to computer science and cryptography. So there's quite a wide spectrum of different topics, and I think this is the way cybersecurity is. It's an interdisciplinary challenge, so we do it in an interdisciplinary way. Supplementing some of our research work is, of course, we run undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. For master's degrees, we take in people from any bachelor's degree. So it is also something that is a little bit different from typical cybersecurity degrees. So we have people from backgrounds of like music, journalism, and mixed with computer science students and so on. And also we also run regional and national competitions. So we send competitive teams to different CTFs around the world, and the International Cybersecurity Challenge, which I was one of the co-founders of.
Oh, that is really impressive. Thank you for this comprehensive explanation about your research center. And I really like the fact that it is interdisciplinary, and it covers wide range of topics within the cybersecurity domain. So you may have seen that in my previous episodes with the guests that I had, we talked about different aspects of autonomous cybersecurity. We talked about the definitions, the autonomous systems, and how cyber is important. Cybersecurity is important for autonomous systems, and we talked about autonomous cybersecurity from business perspectives. Business perspective. I have seen a paper that you published back in 2020, which is titled Cyber Autonomy, Automating the Hacker. And I thought the title was interesting, and I read through it and I found it really insightful. I noticed that you have described 4 phases for cyber autonomy. Would you be able to describe them a little bit for people that are listening to this podcast?
Yeah, thank you. It's actually my first paper into the political science publication. So it was written in a pretty, I'll say, general audience type of language. But I think one of the things that I had a chance to do, which I probably, this concept would probably not be accepted in most computer science papers, was the fact that we are now I identified about 4 phases of maturity for cyber autonomy. And the goal of cyber autonomy is one day, I would say probably this is the perfect goal, is when we actually have the ability to let the systems know in human language, our desires of, let's say, can you protect my infrastructure against DDoS attacks, and ensure, and can you check whether there's any advanced persistent threats within my system? And then the systems will autonomously help you to solve that. And it takes a defensive thinking rather than an attacking thinking. So it's basically to make our lives a bit better and easier. In this kind of, I would say at this moment, a utopian dream, but I think we're edging closely towards that. There are 4 phases on how we achieve that. The phase 1 is data fusion. So this is where the basic level of maturity. And as I mentioned, these 4 phases, just feel free to think about some of the existing technologies and where they place. Right. So data fusion is phase 1. And data fusion talks about the tools bringing different data sets together. In the late 1990s, we actually see security information and event management tools, SIEM tools, doing that. And then around the 2000s, this is when the SIEM tools start to pick up, and then they bring network or systems logs together and then make sense of it and see if there's an attack. They display the attacks, possible attacks, which they label through true or false detection, Boolean logical detections and rules. And then they give you a traffic light system and so on. So they bring all these data sets together and try to make sense of the complexity. Then we move into second phase, right, which is called cybersecurity workflow automation. Now, the word is automation and workflow, right? So cybersecurity workflow automation involves not just bringing the data fusing together, but also having some a little bit more intelligence to it. So, for example, in the DARPA Cyber Grand Challenge in 2016, we saw a little bit of that where, basically the software were in a way self-healing. They were able to understand and do, symbolic execution, repair, auto-patching, and so on. And that is moving. And in the words of Bart Miller, the father of fuzzing, he said it's kind of like building the aeroplane while we're flying it, or driving the car while we're driving it, right? So, or building the car while we're driving it. So this is the crux of phase 2. And I think this is where most of our technology is, right? So you see, like, for example, the security SOAR technologies, security orchestration, automation, and response technologies would allow us to automate the workflows. But the problem is some of these workflows are still heuristics. They're basically, human given rules to detect, I would say, simplistic, scenarios. For example, is someone doing a scan of your network now? Are they doing a port scan and so on? So, so this is another step closer to the initial goal that I mentioned. We are one step closer. We're now seeing the entry of most technology into phase 3, which is cyber autonomy operation in the paper. The keyword now is not just autonomy, but also operation. And it is able to let us do, so basically now the human user is able to say, um, you know, this software, they can give simple rules and say this is something like, for example, I need to comply with certain different acts like the SOX and different requirements like HIPAA and so on. Is there a way to continuously monitor that? Because to comply with certain auditing principles, you need not just a snapshot of the systems, but also throughout the entire journey. In maybe say a year, you got to show that you're continuously monitoring. This is very manual work. A lot of it is done through manual, humans actually monitoring that. Now, in the 1980s and 90s, there was this thing called continuous auditing, which was proposed by auditors. And they say, oh, it would be great if we have systems that actually automatically do that for the human and then identify the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities, not just from the technical aspects, but from the governance aspects, and integrate them together. So this is where we are moving towards, but there are some open challenges. For example, policy A and policy B may clash. How do we remediate that? So we can't do that at the moment, but they have to run in the same system, So these are the things that we have to automate. And then we move into the fourth and the final phase, which is cyber autonomy strategic. So the keyword is strategic because now this is when you can basically talk to the cyber autonomy tool or the AutonomousCyber tool and basically say to it, like the way I mentioned just now, are you able to help me to defend and make sure that like how many assets do I have that should be patched, and can you test the patch before you implement and check the patches for say potential vulnerabilities and look at the software. But the key now is I'm still using technical language. The challenge here in phase 4 is that someone without the technical knowledge will be able to defend themselves. And this is tied to a higher research goal that I have, that my vision is that one day, all the users of computing and environments are able to have control over their systems and their data. And the way to have full control is basically to achieve the phase 4, which is the strategic level of cyber autonomy. And as you can see that when we can have this strategic level, we are moving from an initial reactive approach to a proactive approach. I hope that that makes sense, Tooska.
Yeah, of course, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think if we are at stage 2 now or at stage 3, somewhere between?
We are now somewhere at stage 2 and 3. So a lot of the security technologies now will be in where we will call the cybersecurity workflow automation right now.
And how far are we from stage 4, you think?
I will say that the stage 4 will happen when we have ability to overcome some of the open challenges.
Mm-hmm.
We probably are about 10 to 20 years.
Okay.
I'm quite reticent to say a number because I don't want to be quoted in 50
Yeah.
years time,
Yeah,
but
with the speed of the technology and all these new innovations, you never know.
yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. So you mentioned that that was your one of your first papers in this whole autonomy and politics and all things together. So what is your most current research in autonomous cyber then?
Yeah, so it's linked to your previous question, like how far away are we? So it's actually just trying to address some of the open challenges. One of the research that I'm doing is to in fact, it's a bit of a full circle because I did AI planning for my PhD, and then and I know there's a lot of strong AI planning groups in Canada. So so now I think the gap is we are learning a lot and machines are learning very well, but the gap is how do we link it to planning and scheduling? With a goal from the user, how do we generate plans or strategies that can help to automate these things? So this is one of the research that I'm doing. I'm applying it into critical infrastructure. So at UQ, we have what we call the energy test lab. And this test lab simulates the entire, energy production across solar, wind, and the traditional coal power plant type of energy production, and also the consumption of energy. So using that as a basis, we are able to generate different AI planning techniques and integrate them from the learnings from the machine learning outputs. So the bridging will be quite important because once you do that, then the engineers in the power plants, for example, will be able to automate the response to simplistic scenarios and bring us from phase 2 to phase 3. That's the hope.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is impressive. Thank you. So you're actually applying it in real world scenarios in cyber physical systems then?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So we've had a few papers around it. There were a few challenges, and then along the way, I also discovered some of the challenges. For example, a lot of the learning techniques, as you would in learning, the nature and the philosophy of learning is that something has already happened and you learn from the past, right? So because of that, a lot of learning techniques are not made for real-time detection or near real-time detection. So this is one of the challenges. A lot of research now are not able to do real-time or near real-time. And that's the nature of the cybersecurity data sets. The nature of it is, for example, a lot of cybersecurity events, the logs that record these events, they are triggered by smaller cybersecurity events. For example, a network scan and so on, or illegal access to some accounts. These are events that are discrete and not continuous. But the techniques that are able to detect things almost real time or near real time would be those like, for example, stream mining and so on. They are made for continuous data sets. So there is a need to either you reinvent or invent new techniques for continuous or for discrete cybersecurity data sets, or you adapt the continuous ones to the data sets here. So this is what one of my PhD students is doing right now, just looking at both ways. Can we, normalize the data sets to fit, say, stream mining, or can we adapt some of these techniques that are near real time to look into the discrete cybersecurity data sets? And then hopefully that also bridges from phase 2 to phase 3 in my maturity model.
That is great. Thank you so much. So based on all this discussion that we had, I'm sure that some of my audiences would be interested in contacting you to do further like discussion about this whole maturity levels, or to have some collaborations with you. What is the best way of contacting you then?
Oh, you can just either add me on LinkedIn and say you heard this podcast, or just email me at ryan.ko@uq.edu.au.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Before I finish this episode, a quick reminder about our Autonomous Cyber 2024 workshop. Professor Ryan is one of our TPC members as well. So as I mentioned, the paper submission deadline has passed already, but feel free to check our website in order to gain more information about the registration information and how you could attend the workshop. If you're interested in this topic, please make sure that you follow us on social media for future episodes of our podcasts or to attend our workshop. Thank you so much for your time, and see you later.